Good morning. Try that again. Good morning, everyone. Is that better? Welcome to the Universalist Church, in which love is the spirit. We're glad that you are here in the sanctuary, or anywhere in the world, especially those visiting or returning after a time away. I'm Gretchen Fountain, one of your co-moderators on the Board of Trustees. If you're a visitor, we hope you'll talk with our welcome team or visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more about us. Our guest book or online contact page will help you get onto our electronic mailing list. Electronic communications are still the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church of West Hartford. We're in the season of colds, flu, and COVID, though the risk of severe illness is considered low. If you're unvaccinated or would prefer a mask, our ushers have some that we're happy to share. After worship, we will have fellowship in Fisk Hall and through Zoom, as well as the new member orientation session with Reverend Adam in the parlor over in that corner there. If you need help finding your way to Fisk Hall for fellowship hour this morning, any member of the church will be happy to guide you. Just look for someone wearing a Universalist Church name tag. You can follow me. You will find the link for the Zoom in our weekly news or the Breeze calendar. If you aren't getting the weekly news, please sign up for it on our website. And now, I invite everyone to take a moment to make your mobile phones silent, turn off your email, put away your keyboards, and please settle in for worship.
If you have a home chalice, I invite you to light it as we light ours here in the sanctuary. And we light this chalice with a flame that is newborn in this moment, but comes from the flame that danced and grew before it. And we too have been new, just born, and we too have been those who came before, whether giving life or guidance, wisdom or comfort. In this flame, we are reminded that it is our task to make sure that the things that we value continue on beyond us, for those who will need it when they, too, begin to dance. Our opening hymn is number 349 in the gray hymnal. Number 349, please rise in body or in spirit as we sing together. Let's join together in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant. It's printed in your order of service and in the description online. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
Just a couple of things before I tell a lovely story this morning. We do have church school, but only for nursery, preschool, and kindergarten this morning, but families who have grade school age children are welcome to use the family library on the second floor. I have a story for you this morning, and we're going to call it Natural Treasure. Patty grew the finest gooseberries, black currants, and red currants in the whole country. He had 3 fields of fruit bushes, and every day he walked round the bushes with a hoe, taking out any weeds which were growing. So the bushes had all the goodness of the soil to themselves. By the middle of each summer, they were heavy with large, juicy fruit. But sadly, Patty was not as good at raising his children as he was at raising his fruit. His 2 children were known as the laziest in the country. They spent all day drinking and eating and chatting with friends. Sounds fun. They never lifted a finger to help their father. As the years passed, Patty became increasingly anxious about their laziness. "When I am dead and gone," he would say to his neighbors, "all my fruit bushes will become overgrown with weeds, and my children will starve." Living a short distance from the village in a small cave was a hermit, renowned for his wily wisdom. Finally, Patty decided to visit this hermit to ask for advice. After he heard Patty's story, the hermit sat for a few moments in silence, stroking his long white beard. At last, the hermit rose up, patted Patty on the shoulder, and assured him he would teach the 2 lazy children to work. Then the hermit left his hut and went to see them. "I have something very important to tell you," he said to the 2 of them. "I happen to know that in those fields of fruit bushes there is great treasure. It will be enough to feed and clothe you for the rest of your lives." It was now September. From then until Christmas, Patty's children went out into the fields each day searching for treasure. They dug round every fruit bush, turning over the earth in hope of finding a casket full of gold. But by Christmas, they had found nothing. So they went to the hermit and accused him of deceiving them. "I haven't deceived you," the hermit replied with a grin. "You must keep searching. I promise that by next September you will have found the treasure." They refused to believe him. "Very well then," the hermit continued, "I will make a bargain with you. If by September you have not found enough treasure to buy food and clothing for the rest of your lives, I will share whatever I receive with you. But if you do find treasure, you must share it with the poor in this village." The siblings agreed, so they continued to dig in the fields, turning over the earth between the fruit bushes. Patty watched with great satisfaction, pleased that while his children were searching for treasure, no weeds would grow. Thus, by the middle of the summer, the bushes were again heavy with large and juicy fruit. The hermit came to the field to see the two siblings. "Ah," he exclaimed, looking at the fruit bushes, "I see you have found your treasure." At first, they could not think what he meant. Then it dawned on them. Over the next few weeks, the hermit helped them to pick the treasure. Half they sold in the market, and the other half they gave to the poor. And from then on, Patty's children continued to work hard in the fields. Each year, they again sold half the crop and gave away the rest. And as the hermit prophesied, the money they got was quite sufficient to feed and clothe themselves for the rest of their lives.
So we are going to teach you a new song to sing the children out and their teachers out with. We have been doing number 413 in the gray hymnal called "Go Now in Peace," but you'll see in the order of service that we're going to teach you one called "We Will Keep a Place for You." Some of you know this, I know, but for some of you, this is going to be very new, and it's nice to have some options. We want to be able to mix this up a little bit now and then. So, what I'd love for us to do is play it and sing it once through, those of us who know it, and then everybody else, we're going to do it again and have you join in as any children and their teachers leave for their classes.
We will keep a place for you wherever you may go. We'll sustain this home of faith and love you've come to know. Go in peace, bring hope to hearts that yearn. We will keep a place for you till you return.
Okay, so if this is new for you, you've heard it once. The lyrics are in your order of service, right in the spot where it says "Singing the Children Out." So let's go ahead and sing this as many times as we need to have the children and their teachers go to class.
We will keep a place for you wherever you may go. We'll sustain this home of faith and love you come to know. Go in peace, bring hope to hearts that yearn. We will keep a place for you till you return.
I think we can hold it there. Thank you so much for singing all the way through it with us. And we will use that now for the next few weeks, a month or so, and then we'll have one more new one to learn, and then we'll be able to rotate through 3 of them and have some different options as we go. The voluntary offering, the sharing of our resources for our shared work as a religious community, is a spiritual practice for us. By offering your time and talent and treasure to this community, you help us serve our members, our friends, and the wider community too. And so as part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that do work in the world, bringing us ever closer to creating the beloved community. And this month, we share our offering with Hands on Hartford. Founded in 1969 as Center City Churches, Hands on Hartford is a social service nonprofit organization that serves Hartford's most economically challenged residents in the areas of food and housing and health. This agency has had a long-standing commitment to providing respectful, comprehensive services with help from volunteers and community partnerships. One of the programs that they offer that others don't so much and is hard to find elsewhere is the Faces of Homelessness Speakers Bureau, offering community education about homelessness by people who have experienced it in the past or are experiencing it now. To give electronically, please use the QR codes on your order of service or the links in the description or the links on our website to make your donation to our offering. And here in the sanctuary, our offering will now be gratefully received. May these gifts so generously given sustain the work that we do together, the life of this community, and the ways in which we can help in the wider world of which we are a part. Thank you. Thank you. Our congregational reading today is number 614. Number 614 in the Great Hymnal. It's called the Sacred Hoop. These are words taken from the words of Black Elk, who was a spiritual leader of the Ogallala Lakota, and his words have inspired people from within and beyond his tribe. During this Native American History Month, our congregation is attending to the Native American history of this place. We've been learning from a local tribe and developing a relationship so that we can acknowledge those who lived here before and still do now. We're in the process of getting that statement put together and accepted, and as soon as it is ready to share with you, we will be sharing that. And it will become part of a land acknowledgement, like so many other places are doing, that will be in our order of service on our website and available for people to see so that they know who we have chosen to be in relationship with. Please rise in body or in spirit as we speak these words. I'll read the words in Roman type, and then together we'll respond with the words in italics. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things of the Spirit, and the shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that make one circle, wide as daylight and starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree, to shelter all the children of one mother and one father, and I saw that it was holy. Let's join in singing our doxology.
Praise God for love we all may share. Praise God for beauty everywhere. Praise God for hope of good to be. Praise God for truth that makes us free.
Please be seated. As we begin our time of prayer and meditation, I have many things to share with you on behalf of the community and in recognition of the world beyond. So today, I'd like to let you know that Sophie E. is recovering from another infection in her longer recovery from the hit-and-run accident that hurt her. In the last few weeks, she's been in this additional stage of recovery. She seems to be doing reasonably well, but certainly cards mean a lot in this lengthy process. There is a basket of cards on the welcome table behind the sanctuary. If you would like to write a card for her and place it into the basket, the pastoral care team will make sure that she receives those. Orlean S. has hit that point of the year where we're moving into a time that can be a little bit lonely, and so some messages and support, whether it be cards or phone calls, text messages, what have you, emails, would be much appreciated. And also Karen H., who is now working at an animal shelter, found that one of the puppies that she enjoyed so much has died. And so those of us who have lost animal friends and companions know how hard that loss can be. If you would send Karen your thoughts and any messages of care, concern, and hope, I know that she would appreciate that too. As we think of the world beyond our congregation, we also need to be aware that in just the past couple of days that we have seen threats of anti-Semitic violence in New York City, with people arrested at Penn Station threatening to do harm. And then just late last night in Colorado, we have heard of an act of anti-LGBTQ plus violence at a gay bar. It is hard sometimes to be in a world where these things are happening, whether because they connect to us as individuals or people that we know, or just because we care about the whole of the world. And in these moments, it's of course appropriate to feel sad and perhaps without words. It's also appropriate for us to make sure that we speak out against these forms of violence, whether in our prayers here or in our daily lives everywhere we go. This weekend also, we mark Thanksgiving coming up and Native American History Month, and the Transgender Day of Remembrance is today too. There's a lot to hold, a lot to be thinking about. And so sometimes our prayers are very expansive, trying to hold all of the world. And today, the prayer is very specific. I've adapted these words from a prayer by Rabbi Reuben Zalman, transgender educator and assistant rabbi at Temple Bethel in Berkeley, California, in a prayer for the Transgender Day of Remembrance. Please pray with me. Merciful One, bless the souls of all who are in our hearts on this day of remembrance for the transgender community. We call to mind today the young and the old of every race, faith, and gender experience who have experienced and died by violence. We remember those who have died because they would not hide, or did not pass, or did pass, or stood too proud, or looked like someone else who did. Today we recognize them, the reluctant activist, the fiery hurler of high heels, the warrior for quiet truth, the one whom no one really knew. And if we can name names, there are thousands more whose names we do not yet know, and for whom no morning prayers might have been said. So we mourn their deaths, and we give thanks for their lives, for their teaching, and for the brief glow of each holy flame. And we pray for the strength to carry on their legacy of vision and bravery and love. As we remember them, we must remember them with the thousands more who have taken their own lives. We pray for the resolve to root out injustice, ignorance, and cruelty that grows despair. And we pray that all those who perpetrate hate and violence will speedily come to understand that this good creation has many faces, many genders, many holy expressions. Blessed are those who have allowed their divine image to shine in the world. Let us take a time in stillness together for grieving as needed and for the prayers of our own hearts as well. Sometimes our prayers are specific. Sometimes communities need us to be present, to recognize them by name. And we know that in all of that there is more to pray for than we can even imagine. And so in this moment we hold both transgender people and the rest of the world. We hold together Jewish communities that are increasingly under threat and the rest of the world. May our prayers call us into action as well. May it be so. Amen.
Our first reading this morning is from Gluttony by Francine Prose. Too soon, too delicately, too expensively, too greedily, too much. Those are the 5 ways in which, according to Gregory the Great, gluttony reveals itself, or alternatively, hides, baiting its trap with the extra portion, the costly delicacy, the tempting between meals snack. Sometimes it forestalls the hour of need. Sometimes it seeks costly meats. Sometimes it requires that food be daintily cooked. Sometimes it exceeds the measure of refreshment by taking too much. Sometimes we sin by the very heat of an immoderate appetite. In fact, Gregory's formulation describes the way in which most of us eat, or think about eating, or plan to eat, on a more or less daily basis. Of the 5 warning signs that the 6th century Pope identified as the hallmarks of the sinner, there are really only 2, too greedily and too much, that we continue to associate with gluttony. Does the desire for costly meats or dainty cooking really sound like a crime against God? An evil that should rightly consign us to spend an eternity in the 3rd circle of hell? If gluttony is indeed a sin, who among us is not guilty? Our second reading is an excerpt from Meeting Faith, the Forest Journals of a Black Buddhist Nun, by Faith Adiele, a lifelong UU who spent a time in Thailand as an ordained Buddhist nun. When my turn comes to gather my meal, the sight of the long tables groaning with Thai delicacies nearly makes me cry out. I had pictured a battered tin cup of white rice, perhaps some steamed lotus pods, but here are giant bowls of fragrant jasmine rice, a pilaf of brown rice, peanuts, beans, and tofu, mounds of steaming sticky rice, my personal favorite, the choice of 2 raw vegetables that look like tree leaves, spicy chilies, 3 side dishes, green oranges and finger-sized bananas, even dessert, glossy black glutinous rice. I piled the entire meal into a large white enameled bowl, the oversized serving spoons clinking against the sides as I try and scoop out a space for each dish. Though everything looks and smells tempting, I take small portions, remembering my oft-regretted tendency towards buffet line madness. The bowls of the women in front of me tower with food, Himalayas to my tiny Mount Rushmore. From 9:15 to 9:45, we eat mindfully. Though the food is delicious, there's little pleasure involved in the actual act of eating. So preoccupied is my mind with the guidelines of eating mindfully. My eating slows as it takes too difficult to note chewing, 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 if already starting to take a spoonful, take a spoonful, take a spoonful. I eat until the act of eating bores me, something that's never happened before.
So when I sat down to write this sermon, I had a cup of tea and 2 pieces of baklava on a plate. I love baklava. And I was thinking to myself, oh, how interesting, because I really only need 1 of these pieces to enjoy the baklava. And I thought that I would meditate on them while I am considering the nature of gluttony, using this as inspiration to carefully consider what it means to consume and enjoy, desire, and have the experience of sweetness. And the very next time I thought about how the baklava might help me consider the nature of gluttony, both pieces were long gone, as was the tea. So this, my friends, is why gluttony is a sin. It's a shame. I had 2 pieces, and I remember liking them. I remember enjoying them to want the second one right away. But in almost no time at all, they were gone. And so was any thought I had of anything beyond simply finishing them off. I could have enjoyed them so much more than I did. And had I really paid attention, I could have eaten only 1, and it would have been enough. Now let me be really, really clear. It's not that I ate both pieces that I see as the problem. Have as much baklava as you want. I certainly do. But it's the mindlessness with which this occurred. I wanted them because I knew I would enjoy them, and I knew that it would bring me pleasure throughout the writing of this sermon. And then I didn't fully appreciate them in the way that I thought I would. So historically, gluttony is a sin that deals often with eating and food. Like lust, it is an idolatry of the needs of the body. And in this way of thinking, bodily acts become sinful when one takes the pleasures of the body and elevates them beyond what is needed to survive. I have to tell you, I think that's a bit grim. There is spiritual growth and enlightenment to be found in the goodness and deep appreciation of the gifts of our physical lives. Think about the foods and the tastes that you deeply enjoy, that bring you pleasure, that remind you of the goodness of life. The tastes of ripe raspberries right from the bush, warmed in the sun. Concord grapes from the vine, fresh baked bread, tender barbecue, roasted Brussels sprouts of all things, passion fruit mousse. These things have taught me that there are things that taste so good in this world that I almost cry with happiness that they exist, and that I anticipate with real reverence the next time they are in season or are offered to me again. My interconnection to the web of all of existence, to what I know as sacred, is strengthened with every touch of beauty I experience in this world. And so the key is to live in balance, to neither be consumed with need nor being contemptuous of those pleasures and the value that you may find. Gluttony is not just about food. I actually think gluttony is better understood as an unhealthy desire for experience, for sensation. I mean, it can be about food. Certainly, a desire to experience food too soon, too delicately, too expensively, too greedily, too much, without paying attention to the pieces of baklava and tea that are right before you. But in the end, it's not about the food. It's about the pleasure, about the experience of taste, texture, temperature, and scent. Each of these ways of desiring food is about sensation, the experience of how we eat. So we think about gluttony often as we eat too much, if we think about gluttony at all. But it's really about desiring greater stimulation, greater excitement. You might remember some years ago when every dessert, every snack food suddenly had the word extreme tacked onto it. Doritos Extreme! I don't need my Doritos to be extreme. That is a feature of gluttony. It is the inability to be satisfied with the experience you're having right now because you are anticipating, even craving, the very next experience instead. Yes, there's baklava in my mouth, but look at that piece that's on the plate. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at it, but why not fully enjoy what I have right now? The sin is not in enjoying or even desiring. The sin is in disrespecting the gift of experience, the work of the people who made it possible, the very existence of these material things that comprise the sensual nature of what it is that we are experiencing. And so an antidote to this is mindfulness, paying attention to what you're experiencing, so that you can then take it in and recognize when you have had enough of whatever it might be. Enough roller skating, enough baklava, enough television. Maybe you don't need to binge watch all 15 episodes of something in 3 days. Gluttony comes in many forms. But yet, that idea of mindfulness, when taken to its own farthest point, is also a bit of a problem. Faith Ariele writes, "From 9:15 to 9:45, we eat mindfully. And though the food is delicious, there is little pleasure involved in the actual act of eating. So preoccupied is my mind with the guidelines of eating mindfully. My eating slows, as it is too difficult to note chewing, if already starting to then take a spoonful, take a spoonful, take a spoonful. I eat until the act of eating bores me, something that's never happened before." This, to me, seems a sin of its own. How is eating without enjoyment in this way any better than missing the enjoyment of eating when you are just hungering for that next bite, even though there's one in your mouth? How does it respect the living things that we have had to consume that have grown to be part of this meal? For me, rather than thinking about chewing, moving a spoon, the part that's missing, the part that notes the experience, the pleasure, the joy, honors the life of what it is that we are taking in, is mindfulness that also touches feel and smell and taste, not just take and chew and act. So gluttony is easy to talk about in terms of food, but we can think about this with any of our other experiences. Think about the experiences that you have had where you've been in the middle of them and instead found yourself thinking about the very next thing you might do instead. I just have to finish this one book so I can get to the next one in the series. Or you could enjoy the book that you're reading now, knowing that that one will be there. I just want to get this project done so I can start the next one. Jumping out of this plane is really cool, but next time I'm going higher. Oh, wait, what's that link on the web page? Oh, that's interesting. Ooh, let me open all of those in new tabs. Something else to read. Wait, was I looking for something specific? Constant consumption. Lining up the next things that we will consume in whatever way, even before we've really absorbed and valued what's already here with us. That is just as unhealthy for our minds and our hearts and our spirits as it is for our bodies. It starves our souls of real substance. The other piece of this, though, is that gluttony is ultimately unsustainable. It is a pattern of behavior that consumes everything in its path, regardless of what it is that it is consuming. Or perhaps we discover that we have to start looking for something even more unusual to fulfill that need for experience. Gluttony does not care about the long-term health of people or systems or ourselves. Instead, it just wants to know what it's going to have in the very next moment. Gluttony is not the same as greed. Greed wants everything for itself. Gluttony is simply never satisfied. And it doesn't sound so bad when we make jokes about eating 2 pieces of baklava. But in reality, it can be extraordinarily destructive. Gluttony drains us of the ability to take in what we could be present to in each moment. And it's a sin that causes devastation in the wider world. Our collective desire for experience can cause ecological destruction, the decimation of plant and animal populations. Tuna, cod, swordfish, sharks, for example, have all been overfished. And there are scientists who are concerned that there may be things that will no longer exist at all between climate change and our collective hungers. If we seek out the costliest meats, whether animal or vegetable, we can destroy them permanently. We human beings have done this before. From the time Europeans came to this continent, our dominant culture became so hungry for woods and feathers and furs for decoration that our larger society, historically and continuing till now, has caused the destruction of habitats and the extinction of species to satisfy those desires. You might have heard the words passenger pigeon at some point in your lives. It's a particular kind of pigeon that was extraordinarily abundant when Europeans first came to this land. Estimates suggest that there were multiple billions of them, billions, here in the Northeast and Great Lakes regions of the US. Reports from 1850 talk about skies dark with flocks of these birds for hours on end. In A Green History of the World, Clive Ponting writes, Native Americans captured the pigeons in large nets, and by the 1630s, the settlers of New England were doing the same. The young squabs were regarded as a great delicacy, and the adults were sought after for their feathers as well as their meat. But the real onslaught began with the onset of large-scale commercial hunting, carried out by well-organized trappers and shippers in order to supply the developing cities on the east coast of the United States with a cheap source of meat. The worst of this mass slaughter took place in the 1860s and 1870s. In 1869, Van Buren County in Michigan sent 7,500,000 birds to the east to be eaten. The last passenger pigeon died in captivity in 1914. but the wild populations had ceased to exist by 1901. In 50 years, a much smaller population of people in the US than we have now consumed an entire species. When we look at numbers dealing with the overfishing of certain species of fish, it should be met with equal horror as these numbers of the passenger pigeon. These are wild populations being decimated for our societal, even global gluttony. This is not to say that we shouldn't enjoy wonderful things, delicate things, abundant things. But their consumption should not become the focus of our lives, something that we do mindlessly without concern for what it might cause in the world beyond us. We should not be so trapped in the pursuit of experience and pleasure that we lose our connection to the fullness of life, to our role as a part of the ecosystems and the communities. Wise stewardship, the responsible care of the world, is another part of that fullness, as is creativity and justice, the sense of sacredness that we find in being truly related to and interconnected with one another. But gluttony prevents us from engaging in that deep relationship with one another and the wider world, the sacred, however it is that we understand it, because gluttony is never satisfied. And if we cannot allow ourselves to be satisfied, it is hard to connect with anything beyond ourselves other than to figure out how to consume it. So mindfulness is one antidote. Had people been more mindful about the passenger pigeon, we would still have them around. We might have more monarchs around. We might have more of everything around. But it turns out that it's not just mindfulness that helps with this. Thanksgiving, the action, not so much the holiday, is also a good remedy for gluttony. The attitude of thankfulness, the act of gratitude, causes us to slow down, to pay attention to what we're in the midst of, what we care about. Being truly thankful means that we're attentive and aware of what we are thankful for. Had I been just a touch more thankful for that baklava, I would have enjoyed it so much more. It means that we can let the next thing wait until we have thoroughly experienced what this moment has brought to us. So if once per year we're able to celebrate abundance, maybe overdo it a little bit, but truly enjoy every bite and every moment. Be deeply thankful for the good that is in our lives. Be grateful for the good that is in the lives of others. Figure out how to make more of that real beyond us. That's okay. But instead of just having one day for this, I would encourage you to taste each moment, to cherish the good and the love and the abundance that we find, and understand that the sin is to waste those experiences, to not fully take them in, desiring only what we imagine is coming next, rather than being grateful for what is happening right now, in this time and place. It turns out that if we are mindful and engaged and appreciative, then we cannot be gluttonous in any of our appetites. May it be so. Our closing hymn will recall to us the passenger pigeon and so many other things too. It's number 203 in the gray hymnal. Number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. Please rise in body or in spirit as we sing together. Let us speak together our unison benediction. It is in your order of service or the description online. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Support the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. Please be seated and remain for our postlude. we go. Please do join us in Fisk Hall for our fellowship time and for a new member orientation in the parlor.